You've probably handled thousands of Jeffreson nickels in your lifetime, maybe even tossed them into jars or coin cups without a second glance. But what if I told you that one of those overlooked 5-cent pieces might be worth thousands of dollars? Today, we're diving deep into one of numismatics' most fascinating modern rarities, the 1977 Jeffreson nickel. Not just any 1977 nickel, but specific varieties that have the coin-collecting world buzzing with excitement. Stay with me, because the nickel in your pocket change might just change your fortune. The story of the 1977 nickel begins, as many great numismatic tales do, with a mistake. The 1970s were a tumultuous time for American coinage. The U.S. Mint was dealing with rising metal costs, high production demands, and aging equipment. It was in this environment that one of the most valuable modern-era coins was born. Let's start with some historical context. By 1977, the Jeffreson nickel had been in production for nearly 4 decades. Designed by Felix Schlag in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel, it featured Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his Virginia home, Monticello, on the reverse. While design modifications had been minimal, production methods had evolved significantly since its introduction. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 585 million nickels in 1977, none of which bore a mint mark, standard practice for Philadelphia minted coins at that time. Denver produced another 297 million, each marked with the small D mint mark. These massive mintage numbers would normally make 1977 nickels extremely common and worth little more than face value. But here's where our story gets interesting. Among these hundreds of millions of coins, a small number of extraordinary errors occurred that would eventually send collectors on a frantic hunt through their change jars. The most valuable of these is what numismatists call the 1977 D double die obverse nickel. A double die error occurs during the hub and die manufacturing process. The die, which imprints the design onto blank coins, receives multiple impressions from the hub to transfer the design. If there's slight movement between impressions, you get doubling on parts of the design. On the 1977 D double die nickel, this doubling is most noticeable in the word Liberty and the date. Under magnification, you can see distinct separation in the lettering, almost like a shadow or echo of the text. What makes this particular double die so valuable is both its scarcity and its prominence. Unlike some double dies that require a microscope to detect, the 1977 D doubling can often be seen with the naked eye or a simple magnifying glass. This makes it both rare and accessible, a combination that drives collector interest through the roof. In mint state condition, particularly MS-65 or higher, these error coins have sold for anywhere from $1,000 to over $4,000 at auction. Even in circulated condition, a properly attributed 1977 D double die can fetch hundreds of dollars. Compare that to the typical 1977 nickel worth exactly 5 cents, and you can see why collectors get excited. But the double die isn't the only valuable 1977 nickel variety. There's also the repunched mint mark variety on some Denver minted coins. If you look closely at the D mint mark on these specimens, you'll notice it appears to have been punched twice, slightly offset from each other. This occurred because mint marks were added to the dies manually in 1977, and sometimes the punch needed a second strike. While not as valuable as the double die variety, these repunched mint mark nickels can still command $50 to $200 depending on condition and the prominence of the error. Given that you can still potentially find these in circulation, that's an impressive return on a 5-cent investment. Now, let's talk about condition. As with all coins, the state of preservation dramatically affects value. For the 1977 nickel varieties, this is especially true. A circulated double die might bring a few $100s, but the same coin in pristine mint state condition can sell for 10 times that amount. When examining a 1977 nickel for potential value, pay close attention to the surfaces. Mint state coins should show no wear on Jefferson's hair or the high points of Monticello. The steps of Monticello are particularly important, collectors prize examples where all 5 steps are clearly defined, referring to these as full steps specimens. A 1977 D double die with full steps in high mint state can be a 5-figure coin in today's market. The luster is another critical factor. Original mint luster should appear unbroken and flow across the surface when the coin is tilted under light. This cartwheel effect, as collectors call it, is essential for top-grade examples. Here's an interesting fact about the 1977 nickel that many people don't realize: the composition was significantly different from earlier Jeffreson nickels. During World War II, from 1942 to 1945, nickels were made of a silver alloy to conserve nickel for the war effort. But by 1977, the composition had settled into the current formula of 75% copper and 25% nickel cladding over a pure copper core. This means that unlike earlier silver issues, the 1977 nickel's value comes entirely from its numismatic interest rather than intrinsic metal content. One fascinating story surrounding the 1977 D double die involves its discovery. Unlike some famous error coins that were noticed immediately, the 1977 D double die went largely unrecognized for years. It wasn't until the early 1980s that the variety gained significant attention in collector circles. This means that for several years, these valuable coins were circulating completely unnoticed, passing through countless hands at face value. Imagine how many might have been spent on candy bars, deposited in banks, or tossed into fountains as wishes before collectors realized their significance. This delayed discovery created a unique situation where many examples had already suffered wear or damage before anyone knew to look for them, making pristine specimens all the more scarce. Another intriguing aspect of the 1977 nickel is what it represents in American numismatic history. The 1970s marked a transition period in U.S. coinage. The recent discontinuation of silver in circulating dimes and quarters had sparked increased interest in coin collecting. The bicentennial coin designs of 1976 had introduced millions of Americans to the hobby. And the U.S. Mint was beginning to recognize the collector market as a significant source of revenue. The 1977 nickel sits at this interesting inflection point, not an intentionally issued commemorative or special edition, but a workaday coin that gained value through chance production errors. In many ways, it embodies the democratic nature of coin collecting, where extraordinary value can be found in the most ordinary places. For those of you wondering if you might have this valuable coin in your possession, here's how to check. First, look for nickels dated 1977, particularly those with a D mint mark beneath the date. Then, using a magnifying glass, examine the word Liberty on the obverse. If you see distinct doubling, especially in the letters Liber, you might have the double die variety. Similarly, check the date. On double die specimens, the digits in 1977 will show noticeable separation. Let me share one last remarkable story about the 1977 D double die nickel. In 2019, a Pennsylvania collector purchased a roll of nickels from his local bank, intending to search through them for anything interesting, a common practice among budget-conscious collectors called coin roll hunting. To his astonishment, he found a pristine 1977 D double die nickel that had somehow remained in banking channels for over 40 years. The coin was later graded MS-66 and sold for over $3,000, not bad for a 5-cent investment. Stories like this remind us why coin collecting continues to capture imaginations. The thrill of discovery, the connection to history, and yes, the potential for finding treasure in your pocket change all combine to make numismatics an enduring passion for millions around the world.